We're back in Mesa, Arizona for our Arizona Republican presidential debate. And gentlemen, we have a question here from CNNPolitics.com. Without caveats or explanations, please define yourself using one word and one word only. Congressman Paul?
Consistent.
Senator Santorum?
Courage.
Governor?
Resolute.
Mr. Speaker?
Cheerful.
That was a good exercise. Let's move our conversation now. Let's move our conversation now to the important responsibilities one of you gentlemen could have in just 11 months as the Commander-in-Chief of the United States. And Governor Romney, I want to ask you first. 11 months from now, if you're successful, you would be our Commander-in-Chief. The Pentagon recently announced plans to open up 14,000 new jobs to women, putting them closer and closer to the front lines of combat. Senator Santorum says he has a lot of things. He sees a lot of things wrong with this. What do you think?
I would look to the people who are serving in the military to give the best assessment of where women can serve. We've had over 100 women lose their lives in the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. I was with Governor Bob McDonnell. His daughter has served as a platoon leader in Afghanistan. He said that she doesn't get emotional when she faces a risk. He's the one that gets emotional as she faces that kind of risk. And I believe women have the capacity to serve in our military in positions of significance and responsibility, as we do throughout our society. I do think that the key decisions that are being made by this administration, by President Obama, however, related to our military, are seriously awry. This is a president who is shrinking our Navy, shrinking our Air Force, wants to shrink our active duty personnel by 50 to 100,000, is cutting our military budget by roughly $1 trillion. The world is more dangerous. It is not safer. North Korea is going through transition. The Arab Spring has become the Arab winter. Syria is in flux. And of course, Pakistan with 100 nuclear weapons or more represents a potential threat. Northern Mexico is a real danger area. I mean, looking around the world, you have Hezbollah in Latin America and Mexico. I mean, we face a very dangerous world. The right course is to add ships to our Navy, to modernize and add aircraft to our Air Force, to add 100,000 troops to our active duty personnel, and to strengthen America's military.
I want to get to some of the hot spots Governor Romney just mentioned, but Speaker Gingrich, on the question of a more prominent combat role for women. Good idea or bad idea?
Well, I think it's a misleading question in the modern era. You live in a world of total warfare. If you are anybody serving our country in uniform virtually anywhere in the world could be in danger at virtually any minute. The truck driver can get blown up by a bomb as readily as the infantryman. So I would say that you ought to ask the combat leaders what they think is an appropriate step, as opposed to the social engineers of the Obama administration. But everybody needs to understand, and by the way, we live in an age when we have to genuinely worry about nuclear weapons going off in our own cities. So everybody who serves in the fire department, in the police department, not just the first responders, but our National Guard, whoever's going to respond, all of us are more at risk today, men and women, boys and girls, than at any time in the history of this country. And we need to understand that's the context in which we're going to have to move forward in understanding the nature of modern combat. I think this is a very sober period, and I believe this is the most dangerous president on national security grounds in American history.
Congressman Paul?
The problem is the character of our wars. And I don't like to think of people in groups. Individuals have rights, not groups. So you don't have women's rights or men's rights. And we still have draft registration. What I fear is the draft coming back because we're getting way overly involved. And the draft, we keep registering our 18-year-olds. So when the draft comes, we're going to be registering young women, and because of this, they're going to be equal. Now, the wars we fight aren't defensive war, they're offensive war. We're involved in way too much. They're undeclared, they're not declared by the Congress, and so we're in wars that shouldn't be involved. So I don't want even the men to be over there. I don't want women being killed, but I don't want the men being killed in these wars. But because now we have accepted now for 10 years that we're allowed to start war, we call it preemptive war, preventive war. Well, that's an aggressive war. I believe in the Christian just war theory that you have to morally justify the war and it's in defense. Now, if we're defending our country and we need to defend, believe me, men and women will be in combat and defending our country, and that's the way it should be. But when it's an offensive war going where we shouldn't be, that's quite a bit different. So it's the foreign policy that needs examined.
Senator?
I actually agree with the comments made by the two gentlemen to my left that there are different roles of women in combat. They are on the front line right now. Their combat zone is, as Newt said, everywhere, unfortunately, in that environment. My concern that I expressed, I didn't say it was wrong. I said I had concerns about certain roles with respect to particularly in infantry. I still have those concerns, but I would defer to at least hearing the recommendations of those involved. But I think we have civilian control of the military, and these are things that should be decided not just by the generals, but we should not have social engineering, as I think we've seen from this president, but we should have sober minds looking at what is, in fact, the best proper roles for everybody in combat.
Let's continue the conversation about the Commander-in-Chief question. We have a question from our audience, sir.
Hi, my name's Kent Taylor from Wickenburg, Arizona, and my question to all the candidates is, how do you plan on dealing with the growing nuclear threat in Iran?
It's a pressing question at the moment. Mr. Speaker, let's go to you first on this, and I want to ask you in the context of the president's and this country's highest-ranking military officer, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dempsey, told CNN this last week, quote, "A strike at this time would be destabilizing and would not achieve Israel's long-term objectives." If you win this election, General Dempsey would then be your chairman of the Joint Chiefs. If the Prime Minister of Israel called you, said he wanted to go forward and question, sir, do you agree, Mr. President, do you agree with your chairman of the Joint Chiefs? Would you say, yes, Mr. Prime Minister, please stand down? Or would you give Israel the green light?
Well, first of all, this is two different questions. General Dempsey went on to say he thought that Iran was a rational actor. I can't imagine why he would say that. I just cannot imagine why he would have said it. The fact is, this is a dictator, Ahmadinejad, who has said he doesn't believe the Holocaust existed. This is a dictator who said he wants to eliminate Israel from the face of the earth. This is a dictator who said he wants to drive the United States out of the Middle East. I'm inclined to believe dictators. Now, I think that it's dangerous not to. If an Israeli prime minister, haunted by the history of the Holocaust, recognizing that 3 nuclear weapons is a Holocaust in Israel, if an Israeli prime minister calls me and says, I believe in the defense of my country, this goes back to a point that Congressman Paul raised that we probably disagree on. I do believe there are moments when you preempt. If you think a madman is about to have nuclear weapons, and you think that madman is going to use those nuclear weapons, then you have an absolute moral obligation to defend the lives of your people by eliminating the capacity to get nuclear weapons.
The American people often don't pay much attention to what's going on in the world until they have to. But this is an issue, this confrontation with Iran, that is partly responsible for what we have seen daily at the gas pump. Prices going up and going up and going up. So I want Governor Brown to come into the conversation. We'll continue it with everyone at the table. As we have this showdown, confrontation, call it what you will, with Iran, should our leadership, including the current President of the United States and the 4 gentlemen here with me tonight, be prepared to look the American people in the eye and say, and I want to hear everybody's plans. Over the long run, I think I can bring down the price of gasoline. Or I can't, if that's your plan. But at the moment, we need to have a conversation about how, as long as this continues, the prices are likely to keep going up.
Look, the price of gasoline pales in comparison to the idea of Ahmadinejad with nuclear weapons. Ahmadinejad having fissile material that he can give to Hezbollah and Hamas, and that they can bring into Latin America and potentially bring across the border into the United States to let off dirty bombs here. I mean, or more sophisticated bombs here. We simply cannot allow Iran to have nuclear weaponry. And this president has a lot of failures. It's hard to think of economically his failures, his policies on a whole host of areas have been troubling. But nothing, in my view, is as serious a failure as his failure to deal with Iran appropriately. This president should have put in place crippling sanctions against Iran. He did not. He decided to give Russia He decided to give Russia their #1 foreign policy objective, removal of our missile defense sites from Eastern Europe, and got nothing in return. He could have gotten crippling sanctions against Iran. He did not. When dissident voices took to the street in Iran to protest a stolen election there, instead of standing with them, he bowed to the election. This is a president who has made it clear through his administration and almost every communication we've had so far that he does not want Israel to take action, that he opposes military action. This is a president who should have instead communicated to Iran that we are prepared, that we are considering military options. They're not just on the table, they are in our hand. We must not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. If they do, the world changes, America will be at risk, and someday nuclear weaponry will be used. If I'm president, that will not happen. If we re-elect Barack Obama, it will happen.
Senator Santorum, please.
I agree with Governor Romney's comment. I think they're absolutely right on and well spoken. I would say that if you're looking for a president to be elected in this country that will send that very clear message to Iran as to the seriousness of the American public to stop them from getting a nuclear weapon, there'd be no better candidate than me, because I have been on the trail of Iran and trying to advocate for stopping them getting a nuclear weapon for about 8 years now. I was the author of a bill back in 2008 that talked about sanctions on a nuclear program that our intelligence community said didn't exist, and had the President of the United States, President Bush, oppose me for 2 years, and by the way, so did Joe Biden on the floor of the Senate, and Barack Obama. I always say, if you want to know what foreign policy position to take, find out what Joe Biden's position is and take the opposite opinion. And you'll be right 100% of the time. But they opposed me. He actively opposed me. We did pass that bill eventually at the end of 2006, and it was to fund the pro-democracy movement, $100 million a year. Here's what I said. We need to get these pro-American Iranians who are there, who want freedom, want democracy, and want somebody to help them and support them. Well, we put some money out there, and guess what? Barack Obama cut it when he became into office. And when the Green Revolution rose, the pro-democracy rose, we had nothing. We had no connection, no correlation, and we did absolutely nothing to help them. In the meantime, when the radicals in Egypt and the radicals in Libya, the Muslim Brotherhood, when they rise against either a feckless leader or a friend of ours in Egypt, the president is more than happy to help them out. When they're going up against a dangerous theocratic regime that wants to wipe out the state of Israel, that wants to dominate the radical Islamic world and take on the great Satan, the United States, we do nothing. That is a president that must go, and you want a leader who will take them on, I'll do that.
Congressman Paul, all three of your rivals here make a passionate case. All three of them make a passionate case that this is a vital U.S. national security interest. But you disagree.
I disagree because we don't know if they have a weapon. Matter of fact, there's no evidence that they have it. There is no evidence. Israel claims they do not have it, and our government doesn't. I don't want them to get a weapon, but I think what we're doing is encouraging them to have a weapon because they feel threatened. If you look at a map of Iran, we have 45 bases around their country plus our submarines. The Iranians can't possibly attack anybody, and we're worrying about the possibility of one nuclear weapon. Now, just think about the Cold War. The Soviets had 30,000 of them, and we talked to them. The Soviets killed 100 million people, and the Chinese, and we worked our way out of it. And if you want to worry about nuclear weapons, worry about the nuclear weapons that were left over from the Soviet Union. They're still floating around. They don't have them all detailed. So we're ready to go to war. I say going to war rapidly like this is risky and it's reckless. Now, if they're so determined to go to war, the only thing I plead with you for, if this is the case, is do it properly. Ask the people and ask the Congress for a declaration of war. This is war, and people are going to die, and you got to get a declaration of war. And just to go and start fighting. But the sanctions are already backfiring, and all that we do is literally doing the opposite. When were attacked, we all came together. When we attack when we put them under attack, they get together, and it neutralizes that. They rally around their leaders. So what we're doing is literally enhancing the power. Think of the sanctions that we dealt with Castro. 50 years, and Castro is still there. It doesn't work. So I would say a different approach. We need to, at least, we talked to the Soviets during the Cuban crisis. We at least can talk to somebody who we do not have proof that he has a weapon. Why go to war so carelessly?
Let's stay on this theme. We have a question from CNNPolitics.com, a question, you can see it up on the screen here, in regards to Syria. Should the United States intervene, and should we arm the rebellion? Senator Santorum, let me start with you on this one. The American people have watched these videos. It started months ago. It has accelerated in recent days. What is the role for the United States today?
Syria is a puppet state of Iran.